If there are things in your life that don't matter to you, get rid of them. Do not spend time on them and try to avoid them if you can. Because life is short and you want to spend time doing things that matter. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. I am thrilled to come to you today from Las Vegas. I'm visiting my wife down here as she continues to train. And I'm in the hotel room and just hanging out, So, podcast from the hotel. From the video, you might be able to see some weird things in the background, but that's okay. I'm pumped to talk to the topic that we're going to be covering today, because this is something that's become really, really important to me recently, actually. And my wife and I, we talk about this all the time, but really that we are creating a life story that if millions of people were reading that story, what would we want it to say? And I want to start by just at least posing that question to you. If your life was a book read by millions, what story would you want to tell? And can you change that? So that is the preface of what we're going to be covering today. Is just, I want to talk about the importance of what it means to actually be the protagonist of your own story, be the hero of your own story, and what it means to actually write that down. So live a life that you're proud of. That's pretty much what we are talking about today. But there's a few things that I'll be covering today. Things from the significance of our decisions, daily decisions, no matter how big or small they are. The second is vision, having a clear vision of where you want to be, what you want to do, and who you want to become. What it means to overcome obstacles and how that's a necessary but challenging part of this whole process. It's necessary because you need to be challenged. No good story has no antagonist, right? Like there's always going to be someone who's pushing you and pushing your limitations and just pushing you to do things that you're not comfortable with, and that's okay. That's what an antagonist does. But in every good movie, every good book, the antagonist is always defeated by the protagonist. And that's the same thing that I want to kind of illustrate for you today too, is think about yourself as like Spider-Man. You're fighting the Green Goblin, okay? You're going through life, and one of your obstacles is, it could be discouragement. Fight that Green Goblin, go beat him, and you'll come out better on the other side. Again, we'll talk about that because it's one of my favorite things to go into. And again, I know I talk about this a lot, but the fourth thing I want to really cover today is reflecting, self-reflection, and what that means for crafting and cultivating our own stories. So there's a lot that we're going to go into today, but starting off, I want to talk about the importance of daily decisions and how they shape our story, because that's where it starts. You could go through life and try and pick every easy decision your way. And that's fine. You can do that. It all depends on what you want. But the point is going back to the question I brought up at the beginning, is if your life was a book being read by millions, what story would you want to tell? Do you want it to be pretty boring? Or do you want to leave a legacy? That should be something that you consider a lot. But let's start with how our decisions, big and small, are literally the pen strokes in the narrative of our own lives. I've been fascinated recently with just how the smallest decisions can lead to great achievements further down the road. Something that I recognized when I was doing some research on this was the butterfly effect. And I'm sure that you've heard this before, but there's a quote or an old parable, I don't know what you call it, but basically the idea is when a butterfly flaps its wings, it causes a hurricane on the other side of the world because that wind pushes and it, goes down there. So that small act of the butterfly flapping its wings and creating that small, tiny, insignificant amount of wind will literally lead to a hurricane down the road. I'm not sure how accurate that is, but that's basically what we're talking about today with it does not matter how small you think these decisions are in your life or the small progress that you're making. It can lead to big achievements down the road and greatness. And that's the thing, is you just have to remember that. And we'll talk about vision and what that means. But there is a science of decision making. And every choice has a consequence, from the mundane to the monumental. It literally scripts our path. Like it writes out what we are doing. If you make a big decision, like maybe you're speeding down the road, you're going 100 miles an hour, guess what? You're going to get a ticket, but that's your choice to go super fast, right? Same principle applies with like small things. If you're, eating 100 extra calories every day, then you're still in a surplus, and eventually that's going to pack on some pounds. It's going to take a long time, but you will start gaining weight. And it's like those small decisions, like, do you want to eat a piece of fruit or do you want to eat that donut in the morning? Like, they're small decisions, but they will leave an impact. And that's something that's kind of important to recognize, is like, at least I do. I push off the small decisions a lot of the time when I say, those don't really matter. Like, what's that going to do? It's fine. Today's a good example. This is me going to come clean. I had a 16-mile run today, and I woke up and I was already in a rough mindset because I was pretty tired the night before, a little sore, and because I'm training for an ultra marathon, I'm reaching these miles every single week that are more than I've done in the past. And I was projected to do a 46-mile week today. And I got up this morning and made a piece of toast, ate a banana, talked to my wife, and she had 8 miles, and so she was running next to me. And I'm running on the treadmill, and I'm just like, my body was shot. I was so tired, and I'm embarrassed that I got to say this, but it's true. I've been going hard all week, and I'm not trying to hype myself up, but I'm just trying to get this vision out there because this can happen. And because I was feeling good, I was feeling all right. I was not feeling good. I was not feeling all right. Sorry, my brain's all over the place right now. But I got to like 10 miles and I was like, I really have 6 more that I got to get done. And I was pushing it. I was running hills, and I finally quit around mile 13.18 or something. So I ran a half marathon, but it wasn't 16 miles. And as I was on the treadmill, I literally convinced myself to not go out and finish that, because I was like, no, I'm tired. And I kept on thinking about that. But this small decision caused me to not hit the goal that I wanted to, which, if I keep that up, will lead me to not be able to do an ultra marathon. And so that's the point I'm trying to make, is like, no matter how small you think that they are, like these decisions, I hit all my miles this week except for 3. And those 3 miles, will compound if I don't confront that challenge and just say, you know what, you got to dig deep when that happens. When you're tired and your body's hurting, you got to dig deep. You got to find that fire inside you. And it goes back to the vision that I have for myself. Like, I want to be one of the best runners that I can be. And that requires a lot of discipline and effort and trying and just putting yourself in uncomfortable situations. But the same principle applies to the goals that you have too. You're going to be uncomfortable at times. And that's okay. It's just, are you able to push through that discomfort and keep going and ultimately become the person that you see yourself becoming and you want to become? That's really what it comes down to. Is just like, you have to spend time thinking about where you want to be and make very small decisions to get there, because those small decisions will have a compounding effect. It's like compound interest. If you're an investor, you know exactly what this is. You start out with a small amount of money and you invest it. And the first, few years, it's not going to really change that much until that interest starts to compound. And then, the next year it doubles and whatever. But compounding interest is kind of the same principle with like small decisions, no matter if they're good or bad. Like, if you're making good choices, like going to the gym, that's a small decision every single day. But that'll have lasting results for you, and you'll feel healthy, you'll feel strong, and you'll probably start living a better life. And same thing goes for like your spouse. And I referred back to the story that I had when I had John Nelson on this podcast, but I talked about the story where my mentor Bryce was telling me how this couple that he he knew they were married for 25 years, and they just stopped doing the small things. And because they stopped doing the small things like going out on date night and talking to each other at the end of the night, hearing about each other's goals, putting one another first, those small things, they stopped doing them. And what did that lead to? It led to them getting a divorce. And so there are, I'm just trying to tell you that little small decisions have huge lasting impacts, because you are a product of your habits, and habits are ultimately just small things that you do every single day to help you become the person you want to be. And that's why it's important to be able to identify good and bad habits. Like, where do you want to improve? Where do you want to get better at? So just think about that for a bit, because there really is it's like a superpower. If you're able just to make small decisions every day that help you get one step closer to your goal. So think about that. Do some self-reflection and just try. But I want to go into talking about having like setting a vision for your life story. Starting out with a quote from Stephen Covey. He says, a mission statement is something you write, or is not something you write overnight, but fundamentally, your mission statement becomes your constitution, the solid expression of your vision and values. It becomes the criterion by which you measure everything else in your life. So you have to have a clear vision for yourself. That's what he's trying to say here. And a mission statement is not something that you write overnight. Like, I don't want you to hear this podcast and then like sit down and be like, okay, nope, I'm going to become this person, or I'm going to do this with my life. No, you have to think about this thing. You have to really be intentional with your thoughts and what you're doing to get to that next level, right? And having a clear vision has been a game changer for me, at least. It's like having a map for your story. And I'll talk about some exercises that I do that have helped me be able to guide my decisions and my actions based on my vision for myself. And really, I've gotten so much clearer of a vision by being married to Allie. She's helped me understand like the things that matter in life and the things that I want to do. I read this quote. There's this Paul Graham is one of my favorite writers, but he just writes out essays all the time, and they're all free online. You should go check them out. But there's this one essay that he wrote called "Life is Short," and it's one of my favorites. I've read it twice, but I found it last week, and it's a little bit long. But honestly, I would go and read it if you can, because it just talks about how it's important to avoid things that don't matter in life. And there's one quote that I'm going to read really quickly because it's important. And he makes a really good point that like everyone is different. Everyone's going to have a different, clear vision for themselves or whatever that might be. But it's important just to recognize that, this isn't a eternal life that we have here on earth. I believe in God. I believe that we'll be able to live with him after this life. But on earth, it's not a infinite experience. It's very finite, actually. Life is short, like Paul Graham talks about. But I want to just say this quote real quick. Sorry, I'm pulling it up really fast. And just think about this for 1 second. So he says this, and apologize for the language. As well as avoiding bullshit, one should actively seek out things that matter. But different things matter to different people, and most have to learn what matters to them. A few are lucky and realize early on that they love math, or taking care of animals, or writing, and then figure out a way to spend a lot of time doing that. But most people start out with a life that's a mix of things that matter and things that don't, and only gradually learn to distinguish between them. And that's the quote. But he makes a really good point at the end of that, is that you have to start gradually determining for yourself what matters to you and what doesn't. And the point that Paul Graham makes in that essay is, if there are things in your life that don't matter to you, get rid of them. Do not spend time on them, and try to avoid them if you can, because life is short and you want to spend time doing things that matter. And I would agree with that, because I get so caught up in work and in pursuing my goals that oftentimes I forget about the little beauties of life. And that's why I said Allie's helped me so much with this. I'm here down in Vegas, and last night was one of the best nights I've ever had with her. And it was just fun because we were just hanging out together and making small memories in this little hotel room. But we went out to dinner. We played pickleball, and then we went out to dinner. We came back to our hotel room. We built a little Lego set, and then we literally just like talked for the rest of the night and held each other and, spent time with one another. And if you're going to ask me the question of what matters most to me, it's Allie. And so what does that mean for me? What's my vision? It means that I want as many moments like that I can get with her, because this life is short, and I want to make as many memories as I can with my wonderful, beautiful wife, so that I can always reflect on them. And when I'm on my deathbed, not think about if I was, what could have happened if I spent more time at work, or I don't care about that stuff. I mean, it's important. You need to have discipline, and you need to have a clear, trajectory for your career, because if you don't have a career and you're not spending time taking care of the people that you love, then that's not good either. Like, you're not going to be able to make good memories with those that you care and love about. But my vision for my life is very simple, and it's to have a family with Allie, be able to help other people, and make a difference. That's really it. Like, I just want to help people. I just want to have little moments like last night when Allie and I just spent time together. And like, it was just the best. There's just so much love there. And I know I'm getting kind of cheesy here, but like, that matters way more to me than anything else. Like, cut off my legs. Don't let me run ever again. As long as I'm with Allie, I don't care. Because when I was up in Utah and I was at my actual house, it didn't feel like home. And I was like, you know what? People always get so distracted with like, I want the biggest house. I want the biggest car. Does that matter though? Doesn't matter down the road. Will it matter to you? And Paul Graham, he makes this other clear note in his essay towards the very end, but he says this. Let's see. It's kind of long, but I want to read it because it's very important. Let's see. Apologize for this. Technical difficulties. Here we go. Okay. So listen to this. The usual way to avoid being taken by surprise by something is to be consciously aware of it. Back when life was more precarious, people used to be aware of death to a degree that would now seem a bit morbid. I'm not sure why, but it doesn't seem the right answer to be constantly reminding oneself of the Grim Reaper hovering at everyone's shoulder. Perhaps a better solution is to look at a problem from the other end. Cultivate a habit of impatience about the things you want to do. Don't wait before climbing that mountain or writing that book or visiting your mother. You don't need to be constantly reminding yourself why you shouldn't wait. Just don't wait. I can think of 2 more things one does when one doesn't have much of something. Try to get more of it and savor what one has. Both make sense. How you live affects how long you live. Most people could do better, me among them. But you could probably get even more effect by paying closer attention to the time that you have. It's easy to let the days rush by. The flow that imaginative people loved so much has a darker cousin that prevents you from pausing to savor life amid the daily slurry of errands and alarms. One of the most striking things I've read was not in a book, but the title of one, James Salter's Burning the Days. So I'm sorry that was a little long, but very important. Are you burning your days? That's really what I wanted to get at here. And are you putting the things that matter to you above other things that don't? Because that's important. You have to do that. You need to be able to understand what's important to you and craft a vision around that. Because life is short and it's difficult. But next point I want to cover is that everyone is going to have obstacles. Roger Crawford says this: being challenged in life is inevitable, but being defeated is optional. Today, on the treadmill, I was defeated by my run. But that's okay, because I was challenged, and you know what? I'm going to brush that off, learn from it, realize I probably wasn't properly fueled, and just get right back into my routine. And every good story needs a challenge, right? Like, without Thanos, the Avengers wouldn't do anything. They'd just sit around. Without Voldemort, Harry Potter would have probably just graduated fairy school. Or without Darth Vader, what would Luke do? He'd probably just be hanging out with his aunt and uncle on Tatooine. I think that's where it was Tatooine. Someone comment down below if it wasn't Tatooine. But every person, every story that you want to read has someone who's going to push you and challenge you. I've had my fair share of antagonists, both internal and external. Like, external being my health issues, or my body giving up on me, like today, or anything like that. And internal being my mind. The mind game is way harder, if you ask me, than the external game. Someone could come up to me, talk trash to me, whatever. I'll brush it off, because I know that person's probably not getting after it like me. And the internal game is the one that I battle with all the time. And so, going back to that, having someone like Allie to ground me and talk to me and help me has been monumental in my transformation and ultimately my growth. Without her, I would just be stuck in my mind. And she slaps me around in the best way possible, and it's all out of love, but she gets me out of my head, and that's so important. But let's discuss how we can identify these challenges and turn them into opportunities for growth. First thing I want to talk about is what is a growth mindset? I'm sure you've heard that tossed around all the time. You need to have a growth mindset if you want to be successful in life, right? Like, I'm sure you've heard that. A growth mindset to me means that no matter what you do, no matter what comes your way, you're looking for either a lesson that can be learned, or you're trying to make the most out of the situation. But everything is going to teach you a lesson. No matter what challenge it is, it will teach you a lesson, good or bad. And it goes back to those daily decisions. But those small things will compound. And guess what? Like, depending on what you do, challenges will be brought up. Let me give you an example. If you're trying to live a healthier lifestyle, and maybe you want to get into running because they talk about it all the time, and you're like, hey, Brett talks about running all the time. Maybe I'm going to go try that. I'm going to see how he does it, how I feel, all that stuff. And maybe you just start running, and then, you run a mile. You feel good. The next day you run another one. You feel pretty good. Take a break, run 2 the next day, whatever. But you're making these small decisions, and guess what? After a month, you're feeling good. You're running a lot. Your body's adapting to it. You're learning what works, what doesn't. 3 months go by. Guess what? Maybe you sign up for a half marathon. 6 months go by. You run that race. You kill it. You do great. And then you say, what's next? But it all started with the decision of, hey, I'm going to go out and try to run, right? And it led to that trajectory that you're on now. The same thing can go with bad decisions. And, well, I want to talk about the challenges of running and stuff first. Because the point I'm trying to make is that no matter what path you take, there's going to be challenges down the road. So if you're trying to live more healthy and you're running a lot, well, guess what? I'll tell you from firsthand experience, you're going to be sore. You'll probably have some knee issues, and you're going to have to learn how to take care of yourself. You're going to have to learn how to fuel. These are all challenges that take a while. And if you ask any runner, they'll say the biggest thing that they struggle with is fuel. Like, what do I need to eat? How do I stay hydrated? Like all these things that are super important to them. But they're all challenges that they have to fix and figure out, which ultimately will make them better, right? But it's because you took the good path. And now for the bad path, I'm going to say you don't want to live a healthy lifestyle. Instead, maybe you've lived a healthy lifestyle for 5 years and you're getting burnt out and you're like, you know what? I'm done. No more going to the gym. I'm not meal prepping. I'm done with chicken, broccoli, and rice. Here's what I'm doing. I'm going to go to the store. I'm getting as many Pop-Tarts as I want, some pizza. Obviously, this is a little intense of an example, but the principle applies. And so maybe you're saying that and you say, okay, well, I'm going to go eat all this food. And maybe it's not that extreme at first, but you're like, oh, I've lived a healthy lifestyle. I'm going to eat that pizza real quick. And then you eat that one day and then you're like, dang, 3 days go by and you're like, ooh, that pizza was good. But you know what sounds good right now is like, I'm going to eat like some of those zebra cakes that I just bought, and then you eat a whole box of zebra cakes. And you're still relatively healthy, but 3 months go by, you've kind of slacked off with going to the gym, with your diet for sure. You're like, ah, man, I'm sick of eating all that bland food. I'm moving on to something else. And these small choices that you've decided to make will lead to challenges like heart disease or obesity. And you'll start realizing that, like, hey, guess what? Just like a runner, your knees are going to hurt because they're going to have to carry more weight around. And I'm not trying to shoot anyone in the foot or whatever the phrase is, but I'm not trying to point anyone out. But like, you're going to have challenges either way. Either way, if you pick the good path or the bad path, depending on what you view as the good or bad path, there will be challenges no matter what. We'll say the easy path versus the difficult path. There's going to be challenges on either one. An easy life is not an easy life, in my opinion, because what I mean by that is, like, if you just go through, you do the motions, you don't really take too much care about things, it's going to be hard to be able to feel confident about the things that you're doing, right? Like, and again, it goes back to, if 1 million people were reading my book right now, what story would I want to tell? So think about that. But these challenges that you will face will help you become stronger in character. If you're able to withstand them, if you're able to grow and find the opportunity within them, and then, like, guess what? You're going to become a better person. But there's a couple obstacles I want to talk about. So internal, like I said, that's been the hardest one for me. And things like fear or doubt or discouragement from yourself, like, those are all hard battles that most people face, myself included. Like, I can't tell you how many times I doubt myself or discourage myself. Like, nah, like today on the run, like, if I had a different mindset, I can almost guarantee you I could have done it, because I've done it many times. But I was not in the mindset. And that's okay, because I learned from that and said, you know what? I have evidence that I've run that far in the past. I know I can do it. And so I'll just make some changes. I'll brush it off and learn from the experience and become better the next time. So think about that. But the other thing for, like, external, it could be things like societal pressures. I've shared many times on this podcast that, like, when I used to go out to dinners or lunches with my family or business colleagues, and I'd get judged all the time for ordering things like salads or the healthier parts of the menu. And it wasn't up until I talked to Allie about this, that I used to get so judged, and I used to take that internally, and then I would feel bad about myself. Like, I'd be like, man, we're all here at this restaurant. They all got, like, regular food, or you could call it that. And I'm over here with, like, a chicken salad. I love chicken salads. It's like my favorite food is a salad. And I know it's hard to believe, but, like, people always would judge me. They'd be like, you're not going to have some of this pizza? I'd be like, no, I'd rather have a salad because it makes me feel better. And I always felt guilty when I'd go out and I wasn't eating what other people were eating. It's kind of ridiculous, but, like, that societal pressure was always on me. And so I talked to Allie about this one time, and I was like, hey, I know this is a little silly, but, like, I always feel bad when, like, and sorry to call him out, but like my brother would always be like, Brad, with the salad, he'd always call me out, and I'd be like, man, it always makes me feel bad when you say stuff like that. And Allie was like, you know what? That's just who you are. And we've been talking a lot about being authentically who we are and being who we are on purpose. Shout out to Dr. Phil, because I'm reading his book right now. It's called We've Got Issues. And he talks a lot about that. Like, be who you are on purpose and be proud of that person. So I am proud of the fact that I go out and I eat salads because it makes me feel good and I enjoy it. It's my favorite. And so I've learned to put that external pressure aside because, again, it's my story, not anyone else's. They can have their judgments. They can tell me that I'm too strict on my diet and I need to balance it out. Whatever. It doesn't matter. I am fully under the impression that I want to live a life that I'm proud of. And so other people's opinions will come and go. But what the opinions that matter the most to me are my own and my wife's. That's it. And my family's maybe, but really it's just those two, because I look at Allie and I as one person. And so, yes. Anyways, challenges are inevitable, but how you confront them is critical. And the last thing I really want to talk about today is just hyping yourself up, honestly. Like, I was talking to Allie about this the other day, and I was like, sometimes I just want a soundtrack to my life. And so I'll put my headphones in, maybe I'll turn on like Prince, or something to boost my mood, get me in the zone. And it's just kind of fun. And so I just try my best to always think about that. Like, I'm in my own movie. And so I think about that too. Like, if I'm stuck in bed and I can't get out of bed, I'm super tired, I think to myself, hey, what would the main character in a movie do? Would Rocky stay in bed? Probably not. I'm going to get up. That's literally, like, I think about that kind of stuff all the time. Or like when I'm going and like work is hard and I'm telling myself like I can't do this anymore, like I just got to take a break. I say, hey, what would the main character of a movie do? No, he'd grind. Like, this is just part of my montage segment, where Rocky's punching stuff. And I just have to endure. And so that's why I love running, because it teaches you how to endure the mundane, how to endure the boring, how to endure when it's hard, how to endure when you don't have any fuel in you and you're just grinding, right? Like, it teaches you all these lessons, and they're all crucial and critical lessons. But you got to think of yourself as the main character of your movie, of your book, of your story, and live life like that. Live life as if everyone was watching you and they were wanting to be entertained, or they were wanting you to succeed. And so I think about that a lot. Like, and because life is short, I want to do the things that matter and I want to leave an impact. So by working hard, by staying disciplined, by being consistent with the things that I do, I'm able to reach that point and become a little bit better every single day. And the same thing can go to you, is if you think about yourself as if you were, let's say, Harry Potter, okay? Harry Potter would be a crappy movie if, all of a sudden he's like, man, is he the chosen one? I don't know. He might be the chosen one. If he says, man, I'm the chosen one, but I'm tired today. Yeah. People are dying from this big snake in the school. Whatever. Who cares? That would be a pretty bad movie. And Harry Potter probably wouldn't succeed. So, same thing goes to you. Like, think of yourself that way and imagine yourself as if everyone was watching your progress. How would you want it to play out? Because really, the only person that you should impress is yourself. The only person you should try to impress is yourself. And then from there, if you do that, I guarantee you'll impress your wife, impress your husband, impress your family, impress the people that you care about. But don't listen to the other opinions of other people. Be strong when challenges come your way. And have a clear vision for what you want to do. And remember that the daily decisions that you indulge in change the trajectory of your life. No matter how big or small you think they are, it's the truth. And I want to know how this goes for you guys. So tell me, here's a fun exercise. Tell me what your title of your book would be, or your story, or your movie, and hopefully it'll be good. But I just think that this is a very important principle to think about that. Like, if my life was a story, if it was a movie, how would I want it to be read? How would I want it to be done? And that will influence your daily decisions, your small actions that you don't think are so insignificant that actually are. And you'll become a better person. And you'll probably live a life that you're more proud of. So that's just a couple things that were on my mind. But again, this whole podcast, the goal is I learned something and I want to teach you guys. And so that's what I'm trying to teach you, is I've been learning how to live life on my own terms, on things that I'm excited about. And it sounds selfish, but really what it comes down to is, like, if I'm able to be the best version of myself, then I'm able to make a difference in other people's lives, help other people, and spend time with the ones that I love the most, like Allie. And the same thing will happen to you guys. So appreciate everyone listening to this episode. I'd love some feedback, so always feel free to shoot me some DMs or anything like that. But until next episode, everybody, keep getting after it.